Good morning, everyone. We'll give folks just a minute to pop into the meeting and then we'll call the meeting to order. I'm watching the little numbers, Shayla, but let me know if you feel like everybody's in who's signed up.
Will do. All right. Well, nope, I'm still getting a few folks. All right, we might have a few folks trickling in, but it's 9:04, so I'm going to go ahead and convene this meeting. My name is Mary Farrell, and I am once again acting as interim chair for today's December 5th, 2025 Oregon Housing Stability Council meeting. And I'll just note that Chair Hall is on the call with us, so she is here. We have a pretty compact but still significant agenda today. So I think we will just get started with a roll call. Shayla? Thank you, Acting Chair Farrell. For the record, Councilmember Mena has been excused from today's meeting, and Councilmember Meehan will be late. Councilmember DeFontorum,
Present.
Acting Chair Farrell,
Present.
Chair Hall. I see that she is in the participants area, not on the panelist list. So we'll loop back around that one. Councilmember Lee,
Here.
Councilmember Rogers,
Here.
Councilmember Harris,
Here.
Councilmember Willard.
Here.
Thank you. 6 council members are present. We do have quorum.
Great. Thank you, Shayla. In the interest of time, I'm going to forego the report of the chair and I will pass this over to Director Bell.
Good morning, Mary. Good morning, members of the council. It's good to see everybody. Happy Friday. I think I will do the same. I don't have any significant updates to note. One thing that I will just maybe just to reaffirm for both council's awareness and then also as a place of consistent feedback as we are continuing to exist within a vigorous and evolving federal landscape. We're aiming to keep the council updated by way of written updates in addition to kind of consolidated verbal updates. So as we consistently make time for follow-up actions, I will just expect that to be somewhat of a standing place of updates. And then we'll also be open to any council feedback around how we want to make either additional time or think about how we want to have continuous conversation pertaining to some of those rather than me just telecast them or in addition to me telecasting those updates as well. So I will just note that for the council and I will yield the remaining of the time.
Great. Okay, we're going to just jump into our affordable rental housing division section of the agenda. Natasha Duttweiler-Davy, Director of Affordable Rental Housing Division. Are we good to go?
We sure are. Good morning, Chair Farrell, and Housing Stability Council. And so it's nice to see you this morning. I think we have a public hearing this morning in advance of the ORCA recommendation.
Yes, and before we get into that, I will just ask the council, does anyone need to make any comments prior to jumping into the agenda? Councilmember Harris.
Thanks. I just wanted to state for the record that I have a conflict of interest with the upcoming recommendation decisions, and I will be abstaining from voting and discussion. And the nature of the conflict of interest is that my employer, Holst Architecture, is involved in one of the projects that we will be discussing.
Great, thank you for that. Any other council members? Okay, great. So we will go ahead and open public hearing comments in accordance with ORS 456.561. I do believe we have a few folks signed up to give comment this morning. Shayla.
Thank you, Acting Chair Farrell. First up, Marcus Luke.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Marcus Luke. Thank you, Chairperson and members of the committee. I'm with the Housing Director for the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla here in Eastern Oregon. And the CTYR have current needs for veteran and elder housing, low income. We currently have a waiting list of 142. And so here in Eastern Oregon, the Cayuse, Umatilla peoples, we're also Oregonians from this land. And our need is just as great as it is in Western Oregon. And we have an excellent development team. We have land that's development ready, that's ready to go. It includes housing, planning department, economic community development, finance, public works, along with our general counsel and board of trustees. Our land is development ready for 17 units. We'd appreciate the time and consideration for this need here in Eastern Oregon, just because we don't have the same services as in Western Oregon. You know, we're in Eastern Oregon, sagebrush country, so to speak. So, and we have a great need in Eastern Oregon, and we have a positive partnership with Oregon Housing Community Services, and very much appreciated. Along with my board of trustees, the Confederated Tribes also agree. The past 5 to 6 years, we've been able to make a very positive relationship with you folks at that level, and I meet with you folks at the tribal level almost every month, probably 2-3 times at least. So, you know, that's our need, veterans and elders housing. You know, our current waiting list, we have tribe members trying to move home, no place to go, and they're overcrowding. And so when we have overcrowding families, you know, it just leads to other services that aren't met. So this need is right now for our 17 rental units for veterans and elders housing. Thank you very much.
Great. Next person signed up for public comment.
Thank you. Erica Cauldron.
Good morning. Good morning, Director Bell, members of the council. My name is Erica Calderon. I'm with Bienestar, affordable housing development group based out of Hillsboro, Oregon. And today I just wanted to speak briefly on our project for consideration, which is the downtown McMinnville Affordable Housing Project. Bienestar is excited to be moving this project forward in front of you all for consideration for funding. The project will be our very first project outside of Washington County in Yamhill County. We are a specifically cultural organization, and we know that this county or this particular town is not only in a need of affordable housing, but could benefit from Bienestar's culturally specific background with the services that we can bring to the agricultural workers and also the wineries there. So with our partners at Edlin & Co., who have brought this project and are co-developing it alongside us, we are just hoping you take consideration in the 72 units that we are excited to move forward on. In addition to that, this site actually is also brought to us by Cooperative Ministries, which is a church who no longer is going to be able to be utilizing part of the site and therefore is looking to bring affordable housing. That's how we got the opportunity for the area that it's in right now. On a side note, I would just like to say that we've been working diligently with the staff through the new ORCA process, and they've been great, especially the technical advisors. And McMinnville doesn't have a lot of uh, other resources right now funding for affordable housing. So it's been your team who's been really working alongside us to understand the other resources that the state has for us to make this project work. So shout out to Claudia Cantu, who's been helping us inside this. Thank you.
Right, thank you. We've got one more person signed up, I believe.
Yes, one moment. Brian Shelton Kelly, please.
Excuse me. Good morning, everyone. Commissioner Bell, Acting Chair Farrell, members of the council. I am Brian Shelton Kelly, Director of Real Estate Development with Hacienda CDC. Hacienda CDC is a Latino-led, culturally specific, affordable housing developer based in Portland. Wanted to take just a few brief moments this morning to, one, recognize and appreciate the council and OHCS for taking up our proposed project, the Minnesota Places 2 project, and also perhaps speak a little bit to the reasons why Hacienda CDC is even thinking about taking this project on. As you know, this is a unique, complicated, challenging project. It's really going to take all of us working collaboratively together to problem solve this. And I think that really speaks to why Hacienda CDC wanted to even look at it in the first place. We saw an opportunity to address an issue and in the end produce some much needed affordable family-sized unit housing in North Portland. We're clear-eyed about the challenges of this project. And again, we greatly appreciate the council's willingness to take this up and OHCS staff's willingness to work with us as we work through this one and again, try to get some much needed housing produced here. Thank you.
Thank you. I do see a few other hands raised, and if anyone else wishes to make public comment in regards to the agenda items today, please continue to raise your hand.
Okay, first up, Jillian Felton.
Hello, thank you so much. My name is Jillian Siraj Felton. I'm the Housing Director at Community Partners for Affordable Housing. And today you're considering a small rehab project for Metzger Park. I just wanted to join the call today and say a big shout out and thank you to the team at OHCS. I think we first started talking about the needs for this project almost 2 years ago with OHCS, and really their help guiding us through both the ORCA process with some of our other projects and this one, and really getting creative to find a way to get us to a solution that's going to work for this project, keep 32 units of existing deeply affordable housing online in Washington County. And so I just wanted to specifically thank, of course, Natasha Detweiler, but also Roberto Franco, Michael Parkhurst, and Heather Gramp, and Hattie and John, who all jumped on a call with us. And really, we talked them through what was going on, and they talked us through what's going on at OHCS and finding a way to make this happen. Like I said, it was a very big risk to our organization. It has a sewer that desperately needs to be replaced that runs under a creek. So it's could be a really major issue if we don't get it addressed. And I'm just so grateful, and SEPA is so grateful for the team there to help us get through this over the last couple years and get to this place. Our board is just thrilled and was so grateful in our last board meeting on Tuesday. And I just wanted to express and share all of that with the team here. We're really grateful for their expertise and their willingness to talk to us. And I just can't say enough great things and how happy we are that this is going to move forward.
Thank you. We had one more.
Amanda Saul.
Hello, good morning, Acting Chair Farrell and members of the Council and Director Bell. I'm Amanda Saul, Assistant Director of Development for Home Forward, and I'm here to provide public comment on behalf of Home Forward and Urban League of Portland for our jointly developed project, Broadway Corridor. We want to thank OHCS staff and the Council for its investment in this important project, especially now. Broadway Corridor will provide 229 units of housing, serving people below 30% and 60% of area median income, including 35 family PSH units for chronically homeless families. The project will also include a workforce development center and early learning center, both operated by Urban League. We hope that these services will help to increase wealth and neighborhood vitality for both residents and neighbors alike. This project represents many firsts that we're very proud to share. At 14 stories, it will be the tallest cross-laminated timber project in Oregon, which will substantially reduce the carbon footprint for a high-rise project and increase jobs. It will help to set the stage for future CLT projects across the state. This will be the largest building built by Colas Construction, a Black family-owned contractor experienced with affordable housing. Colas is fully aligned and active in increasing MWESB goal subcontractor participation and exceeding MWESB goals. This is the third project Urban League and Home Forward have partnered on, but the first where Urban League will have an ownership stake in the limited partnership. This is an excellent way to build capacity of culturally specific organizations which want to develop and own affordable housing while at the same time managing financial risk. This will be the first building in the new 14-acre Broadway Corridor neighborhood between the Pearl District and Old Town Chinatown in Portland. This project will revitalize the new neighborhood and downtown Portland as a whole. It will create hundreds of jobs during construction and demonstrate that Portland is a town to invest in. We take your investment in Broadway Corridor as a responsibility and a privilege to create an affordable and vibrant community for generations to come. And we also just want to express our thanks to the OHCS staff and our partners in helping to make this project a reality. So thank you.
All right, thank you. I don't see any other hands, so if we are done with people wanting to make comment, I will go ahead and close public hearing, and we will pass this back over to Natasha.
Great. Thank you, Chair Farrell, Director Bell, Housing Stability Council. Nice to be with you this morning. I have Amy to walk through the recommendations, and I think you've just heard about a large share of them. And I think it is the last meeting of this year, which is like a little bit strange. It feels like there should maybe be in 2030, or maybe it should be March of 2025. I think the time has gone both fast and slow, but also I think this is representing, I think as you can, I think reflected in the testimony, a lot of the impacts of WORCA and in the work of partnership and support that has really been embodied by the team and our partners there. So with that, Amy, will share screen and hand it off to you.
Thanks, Natasha. Good morning, Acting Chair Farrell, Housing Stability Council members, and Director Bell. I'm Amy Cole, the Assistant Director of Development Resources, and I'm here to present this month's ORCA projects for your consideration. Quick few stats on what's happening in impact assessment right now. 10 projects are in impact assessment under review. 58 projects total in the impact assessment step. 31 of those are for-profit-led projects, 28 are nonprofit-led projects. There are 9 housing authority-led projects, and currently we don't have any tribal-led projects in impact assessment. The 7 projects for your consideration today are here and in your packet, and we'll go through each individually. First up is Broadway Corridor. This will be 229 units The sponsors are Home Forward and Urban League of Portland. It's located in Portland and Multnomah County. The request for funding is $11.3 million in PSH capital and $32.9 million in LIFT. The project is also requesting OHTC to be attached to a permanent loan. This is a 4% low-income housing tax credit project, so there will be low-income housing tax credits and private activity bonds also in the project. So the application states that Broadway Corridor will provide culturally relevant services tailored to meet the needs of tenants of color through a strong partnership with the co-developer Urban League of Portland. Home Forward and Urban League's partnership will include housing stability supports, economic empowerment programs, health and wellness programs, peer support workshops, community building, and social integration. Next slide. Thank you. The next project is Downtown McMinnville Affordable Housing. This project will be 72 units. It is sponsored by Vienna Star and located in McMinnville in Yamhill County. The request is for $13 million in LIFT and almost $1.6 million in ag worker housing tax credits. This is a 4% low-income housing tax credit project. So the project will also include low-income housing tax credits and private activity bonds. Next slide. Vienna Star offers culturally specific services that support tenants of color. As a Latinx serving organization, resident services staff are 100% Latinx, fully bilingual and bicultural in Spanish and English. And Vienna Star designs all resident services to directly respond to the cultural needs of Latinx tenants. Next slide. Thank you. Metzger Park is 32 units. The owner is Community Partners for Affordable Housing. It's located in Tigard in Washington County, and the request is for $4.9 million in preservation funds. The project is currently contracted with IRCO for translation services, both written materials and spoken translations. And there is a wide network of services and referral partners available to meet tenant needs, including but not limited to IRCO, Centro Cultural, Vienna Star, Urban League of Portland, Hockey, Somali Empowerment Circle, and Cascadia Health. The next project is Minnesota Places 2. It will be 57 units. The sponsor is Hacienda CDC, located in Portland in Multnomah County, and the request is for $12.8 million in HDGP. This is additional funding for a project that was originally funded with a different owner, and the additional funding is being requested by the new planned ownership. It will also include low-income housing tax credits and private activity bonds. Hacienda CDC is a culturally specific organization that notes that it has a long history of excelling at equity and racial justice initiatives, including having robust plans for outreach. Hacienda advocates for residents by raising awareness and connecting them to culturally specific bilingual programming. The next project is Oak Terrace. It is 48 units, and the owner is St. Vincent de Paul. It's located in Florence in Lane County, and the request is for $3.3 million in preservation. Oak Terrace has a diverse tenant population served by St. Vincent de Paul's bilingual property management staff. The resident services staff receive ongoing trauma-informed training to support residents, including an understanding that our society has racial and ethnic inequalities that cause historic and ongoing trauma. Next up is Pelican's Perch. This is 24 units. It's owned by Timber River Development LLC. It's located in Brookings and Curry County, and the request is for 1.9 million in preservation. This is a property stabilization investment, and funds will be used to pay down a first lien loan and complete needed capital repairs. And the next project is Veteran and Elder Village. It is 17 units. It is sponsored by the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation. It's located in Pendleton in Umatilla County. And the request is for 4.9 million in HDGP. This is the first ORCA project sponsored by a Native Nation, and we're so happy to be bringing it forward for consideration today. The funding for the project comes from the Native Nation set aside in the ORCA. CTUIR centers racial equity as a foundational principle of governance, community development, and service delivery. Racial equity efforts are deeply rooted in the history of CTUIR, and the commitment to advancing racial equity is reflected in formal tribal policies, strategic plans, department-level initiatives that prioritize access and equitable outcomes for tribal members and other populations served. So if approved for funding today, projects will receive a letter of intent from OHCS and will move to the financial eligibility step of the ORCA. Projects will have 6 months to complete the requirements of that step and move to commitment. In financial eligibility, a detailed development budget and pro forma will be closely analyzed by the production team to ensure that each project meets financial and underwriting standards, and to ensure that projects are leveraging debt and other resources that justify and support the state investment. The final award amount for each project is arrived at through the underwriting process in the financial eligibility step. And now the motion is on page 4 of your packet, and I'm happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Do we have any discussion or questions or considerations from the council? Councilmember Rogers.
Thank you, Acting Chair Farrell and council members. So, question that I have, Amy, I thought you said that there weren't any tribal projects when you started?
Right, not currently in the impact assessment step because Veteran and Elder Village has met all standards and is being considered today.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that clarification. And then the other question I have is related to the Hacienda CDC project. And so I understand that they are picking up a project that went defunct with the prior developer. So I'm just wondering what sort of mitigation is going on to make sure that Hacienda will be able to complete the project. So I'm not sure what caused the project to go defunct with the last developer.
Thank you, Councilmember Rogers. And Roberto, I'm thinking maybe I will kick off and then hand it to you to talk a little bit about. The project failed in construction, and there are a wash of issues, which I think we won't speak to the litigation side of that work, but in working with the sponsor, the team has done a lot to ensure that there are strategies. So, Roberto, is there additional information that you would like to share?
Yes, it's Roberto Franco. I'm the Deputy Director for Development and Resources in the division. Yeah, well, I guess what I'll just say is it's in litigation and mediation, and we can't really comment on that side of the issue. I think what we're focusing on is to make sure that with the new team that Hacienda is bringing and a new redesign and look at the project that we can move it forward. In a way, we're addressing the issues that happen on the previous development or where it stands. So we're trying and working with Hacienda and others to take it from there and take it to completion. So that's the main focus that we're giving now. And Hacienda has the support of some of the funders that they need to get it done as well. So we are part of it, but there are other funders also willing and interested in helping make sure that we can get to completion of that, call it a new project now under Hacienda's ownership.
Okay, so you feel confident that the project will continue to move forward, and whatever the issues were before that, there's some contingency plan that it won't transpire in the future?
Correct. We have
Okay.
we have the commitment from Hacienda that is with our participation and others that they'll get the project completed. Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
and I think noting it still is, this is, we'll still be proceeding through underwriting process, and all of the final resources and plans are to be solidified with this reservation in place and this conditional approval. And so I think those are, again, it's, this is the piece of this part of approval. We'll continue to work through the diligence, traditional standard diligence of
Right. We are applying the ORCA standards as any other project. So that I think that makes it clear, meaning that we're not just taking it from here and start applying the funds. They still have to complete the other steps that is expected from any other application.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Do we have any other questions or comments from the council at this time? Seeing none, would someone like to make a motion to approve? Are we going to approve them all as one?
Yeah, approving
Yep.
as a slate.
Great.
So moved. I'll second.
Great. We have a first, we have a motion, we have a second, and Shayla, I'll let you take roll call.
Thank you, Acting Chair Farrell. For the record, Councilmember Harris is abstaining from this vote. And Chair Hall, I see you on the phone. I'll need you to use the *6 function to unmute you to have your vote recorded, if you're able to do that. Okay, Councilmember DeFontorum.
Yes.
Acting Chair Farrell.
Yes.
Chair Hall. Okay, we'll move on. Councilmember Lee.
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
Councilmember Meehan.
Yes.
Councilmember Willard.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
That's exciting. All righty, let me pull up my agenda again. All right, looks like we have some updates on the ORCA, and that is also Natasha.
If I may just very quickly, interim Chair Hall, Chair Farrell, since we were not able to record Chair Hall's vote for the record, I would maybe submit that before the end of the meeting, if we can give it another go to see if we can record it for the record. And if not, we will follow up to record and have that so that we have that appropriately documented. Thank you.
Great.
Great. So next up is the monthly ORCA update, which I've included that write-up in the Housing and Stability Council packet. And so I'm not planning to do a formal presentation on it, but did just want to be able to see if there are any questions. I think part of what we incorporated at the mid-year update this year for Orca as we had practiced for a little bit and realized that as resources become too scarce within set-aside pools, we needed to be able to actively work to pool them and put them to projects. And I think I've kind of talked through what that was in getting to this December meeting. And I think a lot of the projects that you saw are a direct result from that, including where we had some previous resources returned and they weren't able to be used as intended, and we're able to put those to those preservation projects that you heard about this morning. And so really, I just want to pause for a moment and see if you all have questions. And otherwise, I do have the next item, which is the mixed income report to talk through, but happy to talk about the other.
All right, Councilmember Lee.
Thank you, Acting Chair Farrell. Thanks, Natasha. I just want to say a couple things. One is I think the longer we go practicing Orca, the better and better the results and the impact we're seeing. So I just want to say I feel like this last group of projects were outstanding and thrilling and really exciting. So I think, our test is being borne out. The longer and longer we do this, the more and more we learn. Having said that, I want to maybe follow on from something that Councilmember Rogers was raising, which is it's coming clear to me that people need to get in early and often, because it does take some time to move through the processes. Sometimes it's a move forward, sometimes it's a move back, all of which is natural and fine. And I wonder about the crosswalking and the integration between the tribal nations focused work that the department is doing and this and Orca, right? And how those two funding opportunities, pots of money are integrating or not, because it seems to me we got to get things in the pipeline in order to, even 18 months from now, have something specific to be able to take action on. So it might not be something that you can answer right now. And I'm interested in just hearing, I think I've asked this a lot, like how are we intersecting good programs with good programs rather than these silos of excellence, right? Where things are going great here, things are going great here, and we're not always quite sure if there's some kind of mutual virtual information to each other. So I hope that it was clear what I'm asking. It's really more of a philosophical question, not a philosophical question, an informational question. And if now's not the right time to answer it, I'm certainly happy to take an answer, after the meeting.
Absolutely. I think, and I'm, Director Bell, I presume that there is a worthy conversation to have to be able to share some of the amazing work of coordination of the tribal work. I do think, I see a great amount of connectedness across our work in this. There's the spearheaded work through our Eddie office focus, and then also our technical advisors actively engaged in linking in capacity resources and our whole process and system. I think we had built in, responsive strategies across it. I do think the set-asides is the place where we have really found the power for being able to ensure that there's access for groups and organizations that, don't have prolific numbers and need to be able to have the space to be able to create the viable projects. The projects that we've worked with, including the one that has just been approved, are ones that I think, the testimony reflected has been partnership and conversation and support over time. I know we also have several tribes that are through working with our technical advisors are seeking and putting, and we have kind of held the capacity resource side for those tribes to complete and access, and have worked our process to respond to more so to their needs and timing requirements. And so I think I see a lot of interconnectedness, but I do think there's more conversation. I also see Roberto popped on the screen, and I imagine has some additional insight to share.
No, I was just making sure that anyway. But I think it's all of what you said. I mean, at least within the affordable rental housing division, and that I think what I'm hearing is part of a call also to continue the work that we're doing, maybe not at the scale with other parts of the agency. And so I think that is one area that for sure we can explore. But I do see, like you said, that the capacity building is part of that pipeline. So I believe there might be one. Uh, anyway, we're exploring how else we can make those resources available. So in order to get to that pipeline, so we're doing the technical advice, or we're looking at the capacity building and any other resources that can get a project into that pipelines. But it's true that getting into the pipeline will take some additional work and coordination as well.
And if I might just I saw you, Councilmember Lee, please, but before
No, I
I
was just
jump
going to
in.
say thank you for the information. I appreciate it. My ask, and I think we all share this, is, a year from now, I don't want us to be scratching our heads and going, why don't we have more projects in partnership with tribal nations? Because to Roberto and Natasha's point, we haven't done enough pre-work to get them early into the pipeline. So appreciate the information, and thanks. And then I'll turn it back to you, Director.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And Councilmember Lee, I think as always, I think the questions, I think, and insights that you pose always sort of generate, I think, a whole sort of cacophony of thinking. And so I'll try to kind of shrink it in here for the moment. But your informational question makes me think of three things, and some of which plays out in part in how we build our budget. Some will play out in the next strategic plan. And then there's some of it that can and should be happening now, both in terms of evaluating what we've put in place and then figuring out both in the near term, what are the things that we're learning and can adapt to. As part of that, some of the progress that we have made in the relationships with our 9 federally recognized tribes is, this council knows, has come from the consultative space that they have driven and have really directed specifically what the needs are and what's the agenda that we need to build and follow. Some of that started with the Buy-in For initiative. And then what we learned is that having a much more comprehensive resource and agenda through the grant is a good place, is another place to go. And obviously we didn't get the scale of resources that we desired. And so I won't consider that the pinnacle of success, but it is I think has the propensity to be an effective vehicle. All of that to say is, one of the things that we have, or at least I have been thinking about as we think about ORCA, as we think about how we evaluate success, particularly, I'll just be honest, in a government setting, generally when we evaluate success, sometimes we sort of have vulnerabilities in how we evaluate success to whom and to which communities. And sometimes where we see success is over here, actually success looks like something different over here. And so trying to have a broader view of it. All of that is to say is where I think there is an opportunity to build on a lot of the work that's happened across the divisions, really led and driven by the tribes and their, I think, willingness to entrust us with the respect of their honesty and feedback, is to build out a agenda with the tribes that is looking at home ownership, rental, homelessness in the context of each of the tribes. And so I think that is what I would like to consider building on a lot of the learning and fumbles that we've had. But I think it also presents the opportunity going into 2026, which is beyond the 1 or 2 year funding, beyond, the ORCA or this funding source over here. What is the agenda over the next few years driven by the tribes? And so I think that is an opportunity that I hope really plays out in both the consultative space that has got us this far in working with the tribes, but also to be thinking about thinking beyond the increments of funding and the increments of progress. And so it is clearly not fleshed out, but I think one of the objectives that at least that I'm thinking about and that I'm hoping to order our steps towards is building out an agenda based on that consultative space that we've set through our tribal liaison with the tribes. And so thanks for the thinking in that, and looking forward to putting more momentum and action behind that.
All right, Councilmember DeFentorum.
Thank you, Chair Farrell. as the Native housing provider on the panel, I feel like I have an obligation to weigh in here. So I appreciate everybody's comments. I was also really excited to see Marcus's project move forward for approval. And I think what I would offer here, there is a monthly meeting with the 9 tribes where we, walk through the different opportunities. And speaking solely for me as a Native provider, how I do development over here is going to be very different from the priorities that another tribe across the state will have and how they develop. Our populations are different, our land is different, our land status sometimes is different. And so a cookie cutter approach for us really doesn't work. When you talk about sovereignty, that's, fundamental to us, but self-determination and how we structure our programming, the types of programs, I mean, those are just fundamental in how we approach our work. We really look at our populations and how we can best meet the needs of our populations, wherever we're developing. So I would just say funding may not be the only thing, but funding matters, right? And the Tribal Housing Block Grant is huge. That's being lifted up nationally as a model for how to engage with tribes at the state level. I don't know if you all know this, but this is pretty unique. Other states don't have this, even when they have huge populations of tribal people. So I'm really very grateful for the work that Director Bell and her staff have done to make this a reality for us. And we will continue to keep lifting up the funding issue. But you'll see we don't always apply for a lot of the competitive programs because the framework is very different. We have frameworks that exist and work for us. So I think that's something we need to unpack in a very targeted way. Anyway, nothing but gratitude here. Thank you, everyone.
Right. Really great, exciting comments. I'm so excited about all this work. I do have my own question. I'm just sort of curious from the point that an application goes into the ORCA, what's the average length of time from that point before it comes to council for approval? I'm just curious how long that typically takes.
Yeah, so at this point in time, it depends on whether there's resources for the project. And so a project that applies can be processed through that, so you submit an intake application and then that gives you access, if you're ready for an application, to be able to complete the application, which is then at your speed. There's maximum parameters, but it's at your own speed. And the process of that review and being able to determine if you meet impact is relatively swift. And then it depends if there's resources there to be able to move the project forward. And so I think, Roberto, I don't know if you have any top of mind stats. We can certainly be bringing more of that back. I think it is, from a application submitted, it can be within a month that it's coming to Housing Stability Council from a practical standpoint. And it can, projects can be there for quite a long time if you're in a, eligible group that only has access to, that resources that are all spent down. I do think, the resources that we were able to pool this month for LIFT and PSH were really a result of certainly within CSO set aside, so being able to pull those together to make sure that we can fund full projects from those different groups, and then right sizing some of our other held back resources for 9% leverage, which gave us other opportunity. And so I think it's not the case that being on the wait list doesn't give you more opportunity, but if you're behind many projects, unless there is something that changes in terms of our resources where we're really spent down, that there's many projects that we talk to every day, and Roberto and team have a lot of that experience to say we're waiting for additional investment, and I think that ends up being kind of that. But yeah, Roberto.
I see.
No, yeah, I think one of the measures that we look at is the readiness in projects. So when we say bring in an application, we want it to be as complete as possible and also ready to go. By that is that a lot of things are in place, building permits, a land, potential partners, and all of that. So one of the measures we look at is from an approval at Housing Stability Council that provides a conditional and a soft reservation of funds. From this point on to closing, it's an average of 217 days. That is way shorter than we've done in the NOFAs. So that's the average. So some projects can move faster than that, but that's the average that we're seeing now. And that is much better than where we've been, where we were with the NOFAs. In the NOFAs, usually when an approval from council could take up to 2 years before we get to closing, whereas now even less than that. So that is, I think, one of the, I guess, measures of success, if you will, so that projects aren't just sitting and holding on funds or seeing their costs going up because they're not getting there. Because at closing, most things are tied up, meaning the investors, the lenders, the contract with the general contractor that they can get started. So usually after closing, it's within months or weeks that they can start construction. So it's a much faster
Amazing.
process now.
Great. Well, thank you for that answer. It was more info than I anticipated. That's very informative. Thank you so much. All right. Do we have any other questions on this topic? Comments? All right. I think that brings us to the end of our
I think I still have a mixed income report.
Oh,
to
there you go.
talk
Great.
through
I knew there was
briefly.
something.
Yeah. So
Back to
the different agenda types. And so if we're moving forward with that, I'll just go ahead and get that part started. And so I think as we have a challenging build market for building and financial market, one of the pieces of work that we were asked to do at the end through legislative session earlier this year as part of Senate Bill 684 was to provide the legislature with recommendations on how a mixed income housing revolving loan fund can be structured and what that does. And so we've submitted that report, included the reference and link to it in your Housing Stability Council packet. And this is largely the presentation that I have brought to that legislative committee as I brought it. So I wanted to be able to share it with you. And for lack of sufficient time between the deliverable, the deadline and when it was assigned is the only reason why I'm not bringing it to you all first. But I think generally, as we're looking at the mixed income report, so as I, digging into that, I think the reason why, trying to reconcile with why are we looking at expanding our purview and our active efforts into higher income needs. And I think, so kind of just regrouping here around that for us all, I think as creating a center point for orientation and kind of understanding. And I think the reason why that this conversation is applicable is really a few different pieces of it. Firstly, we know there is need at all AMIs. When when our research group has dug into the needs analysis, I have the data on underproduction there. And so if you look at the low and extremely low, certainly the majority, but certainly not the only. The other piece of that is that there is a persistent deficit in development. You can see from that lines on the bars there that the pace of development has continued to decline, and largely those are financial barriers. And then, largely they're financial barriers. And then the last part is we know that when there is a housing constraint, the pressure on those that are providing affordable subsidized housing becomes all the more severe. And so both limits your ability to serve those with the higher acuity needs and pulls folks that could have been better supported within income or rent restricted housing from being able to access it, which just makes our overall interventions more complex. So if there were expanded production across these other AMIs, we would release some of that pressure and have an easier time with longer term occupancy. And then kind of reflected back on why should this be within the purview of OHCS? And I think, went back to the originating statutes for the agency, which was really created in a direct response. The idea that we are financially investing into projects and development was in direct response to the shortage of private financing for the development of low-income housing. And where we look at today's market, where low-income housing still needs financial support to be able to be developed, the breadth of that AMI targets that also need support has widened. And so where 120% AMI housing is not being built with the current market, neither are the financial tools available. And as we looked across the country, we see that there are states that are also seeing this and finding ways and pathways to develop efforts to have state funded financing or state financing, public financing tools to become an intervention to expand development more broadly, and focus on a market that does not have sufficient access to private lending right now. And generally, the tools that are designed are trying to look at those specific market deficits. So where they're finding that there are other inherent, so traditionally, you could be a market developer and you could go to a private bank and get sufficient funding and fill a modest piece of that with equity. So you would get some partnerships and equity investments, some folks to put resources to support the project. Not exactly the same as a low-income housing tax credit equity, but like an analogous perspective. But the scale of need, the gaps between what the private market is able to provide and what would need to be covered with that private equity is too large. So it's deterring the private investment. The gaps at construction are even more severe because that is where you have volatility in construction, risk aversion, and unsure about where that's going to land. And so those gaps are even more significant at construction. And then I think in Oregon, and this is the case in a lot of areas, but most certainly in most of Oregon, there is stagnancy of household incomes and rent revenues. So we're not seeing that you could charge 120% rent to be able to show that you can have that much more debt to support your development with the current rates and all of those impacts across it. So the way that mixed income housing strategies are kind of supported, and so this is like my very high level graphic around it, is to be able to have some upfront resources to be able to support covering some of those gaps, but thinking about these as shorter term. So not as the 30-60 subsidy based resources, but true debt. So we're looking at having periods of time where we could be covering a portion of the total costs of that phase of work with debt that then is repaid. And so when we're looking at that upfront construction period where we know there's a larger gaps, being able to have a mixed income investment fund fill that piece, and it's generally around 25% of the total budget at construction. And then going into permanent, there are some markets where you would have higher rent collections and you would be able to show that you could then pay off that bridge resource and just be able to use our OHCS lending products along with that private equity investment. But we also see that some states are also recognizing that even in that first 10 years of operations, there's some volatility in that. And so having resources that could be affordably financed into the projects for up to the first 10 years to then be replaced and supplanted with recasted debt in the long term to have those paid off is been a strategy of impact, where we're looking at all of the different pieces across the market they're in. The other, I think one of the, let's see, and I think in the report itself, which again you have in the packet, we walk through a few different states and where they have focused on it. Some of those states have been focusing on this as a equity investment. So really looking at this as, the states investing into one of these loans, into one of these finances to be able to get returns. Others are stacking those in as loans, but that mechanism is really all analogous. When we're looking at the potential for impact, and so on the right-hand side here, I've added in, this is what a more traditional affordable housing finance structure looks like. And so that public subsidy or leverage could include the tax credit equity where there are, but you would have kind of all of those different pieces of it, the developer loan often being resources that the owner is pledging into the project or deferred fees. But you're looking at that scale of subsidy and investment into it versus when we're doing a broader swath of AMIs across the project, we can look at that at being another piece of it. I think, we spoke to the production challenges. Certainly, this is a strategy to try to find more ways where projects are able to move forward and get into development. As we look at other states, I think they have spent a lot of time both looking at stalled market projects, so market projects that can't find financing sufficient, can they add some affordability into their projects and be able to proceed with this type of investment in it? So ensuring that we have broader addition of housing to serve 60 and 120% households. We also see projects states looking at their pipeline, their wait lists. And I think most states don't have an ORCA wait list, but they would have a 9% wait list, for instance. So we have that annual process. And so you would look at what are the projects that we have on our wait list where if for some variability or more flexibility in those AMIs, we could have some stronger ability to finance them with other tools that we would have access to. I think it is also, as we think over time and look at our systems of housing, obviously we know that, where folks are moving into projects and as their incomes increase, they remain in those units. They're not kicked out. That's not non-compliant. But if we had actual mixed income projects, you could do something to create policies to let those units float. And so effectively, where households that are in those income eligible units become, earn higher incomes over their residency occupancy at those projects, would be able to then, establish the next available unit rule to ensure that a new unit can be opened, like when somebody moves out of another unit, be opened and made available to lower income households again. So I think those places where you could have some of that flexibility could be expanded and created within a mixed income approach. And so I think the place where we landed on the report in terms of the statutory considerations, I think there were a few tenets there that are felt critical. One was right now, statutorily, OHCS is able to really very deliberately focus on low-income populations and have means to supporting up to 120% AMI. And so those are that kind of low and moderate income household range. But we are statutorily prevented from financing whole buildings if they include unregulated or market units as well. And I think that challenge is going to be expanded when we're looking at doing mixed income work, because the real power of being able to have, leveraging higher income or unrestricted units to be able to support the whole system of housing project really requires that you have one financing lens across the project, so that there's not the need to bifurcate and kind of do condo structures, which is how we need to legally operate those at this point in time. So looking at, again, not changing our focus from the low and moderate income households, but if we are working into doing more interventions into mixed income, that it will be more powerful for us to be able to look at whole buildings if we're going to really make this a production tool. I referenced earlier that I think it's Massachusetts's program looks at this from an equity investment structure. So just making sure that we have those words. Again, the reality of that is very analogous to a loan, but the utility is that it starts to harness the market developers to be able to do something that works in the public system. And then creating a fund. So being able to say that there are, for that program that does that mixed income targeting, would be able and needed to create a fund to be able to encumber that. And so I think that is overall my covering of the report. I do have information there are in the report. I think we had the Michigan Housing Accelerator Fund and then the Massachusetts Build Program as the two primary vehicles that we were looking at across the state. These are all being catalyzed and launched now. This is the time for it. This is the market for it. And I think that's why we're having this conversation now. Senate Bill 684 was also tied to our lending efforts. And I think we've talked in our legislative implementation work around our work to be able to stand up lending as part of our senior work and elderly and disabled and this other body of work, planning to bring more of that conversation to you next month. But felt like this was a good starting point. Most of those mixed income housing strategies would be looking at having, what are the permanent financing tools from public financing systems that could support it. One of the things that you all might be familiar with, in federal tax credits, there's requirements, or in bonds and public financing bonds, there's requirements for 40% of the units to be at 60% AMI and below. And if we think about that as what has our systems actually established around mixed income, that's that standard for it. But with the lack of tools that allow us to finance that whole building, we've really been only focused on being able to effectively use our public financing tools to build at that up to that 60%. And so I think this is the switching of that dial to try to see, are we interested as a state in looking at this as a production strategy to relieve some of those pressures, address the ways that the private financing system is not meeting all of the development needs in this market, that would make public financing a critical piece of what is missing in the state to be able to have expanded development. And I think that is it. Certainly happy for any questions. Again, we'll be back next month to be able to talk about lending, which we're all really excited about, to be able to share that work. And we have provided this report to the legislature, and we will see what they do with it.
Thank you so much, Natasha. Are there any questions or comments from the council? Councilor Lee.
Thank you. Thanks, Natasha, for bringing this. I so truly appreciate just the constant work you and the team are doing to think things through, right? Not just what's here in front of us right now, but what's happening around us and where are we trying to position ourselves for the future. I think in general, I just want to say a couple things. The first is there is so much evidence, both quantitative and qualitative, that when we live in communities that are diverse in all sorts of ways and dimensions, we all do better. And I cannot think of a more worthy value to be underpinning some of this conversation, particularly in this moment, than can we build more financially and racially and ethnically and age diversity into our buildings. I love that. Having said that, I would also recommend that you all it feels like there's a pathway to social housing conversation here. And there is a really great I see you smiling. There's a really great movement in Sweden right now that is doing a little bit of a riff on this, where people who are at moderate or higher incomes are able to purchase housing so permanent housing in buildings that contain people with a variety of income levels. Some are subsidized, some are not. And it's a way for everyone to build equity, for the public dollar to go further and to be in some ways replenished. So that's another place I would encourage you and the staff to take a look at. I think it's super exciting and super promising. So love all that. With that, I also just want to say a couple of things about this is helpful information. I appreciate the values underneath it and the strategy around it. I think we're still not addressing a couple of things, and maybe they're not able to be addressed. First is, we had this thinking that if we built for the middle, it would trickle down, and then the lower units would become more available because the middle would go to the middle and people living on lower incomes. So that trickle down doesn't work. And I want to be careful that we're not thinking that somehow by investing in a more middle level income, which I don't think that's what you're saying. You're saying mixed. And I think we need to be careful about this thing of we'll get enough middle income folks to subsidize the lower income folks. I haven't seen that trickle down work in many, many years. I continue to be concerned about the increasing and the enormously high costs of building a door of affordable housing. It's gone up and up and up and up. And for me, I don't think the answer is trying to get more subsidy. There's something broken about the entire system. And I appreciate that, we're trying to step up to that moment, but I think we have to call that question. And I don't know, I get it. We have, supply chain, tariffs, the cost of steel, all of those things. And those have always been the case. Is it worse now? Sure. There's something that's not working about our model and our assumptions about how much it costs to build affordable housing. And this idea, I'm just curious about how this works when you have a mixed income building. Is that cost going to go down because somehow we're building for people, right? I'm not clear about that. And you could tell me that that's my ignorance and you'll educate me about it later. I feel like we're still not at the root cause, right? Housing, homelessness, lack of affordability is all an economic justice issue. And we're doing a lot of work to, be on the affordable housing side, be strategic, all that. I 100% support it. I don't think we've quite gotten our eyes on the economic justice side of it. And I meant to say this in my survey around the statewide housing plan. We've got to be much more inclusive. And again, this integration of what are we doing on what is now the anti-poverty side and this development side. And we don't have much conversation at the council about what our anti-poverty work looks like, how we're doing it, how's it looking, what's the focus of it. And I think there is a moment now that you are inviting us to potentially to have, which is yes to all of this, and this is not touching root cause in any way, shape, or form. We must talk about economic justice, and we must do that as a housing strategy, not as an anti-poverty strategy. So lots of opinions and thoughts, and no response needed, just trying to get it into the record. Economic justice, we've got to push back to economic justice in all of this. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Lee. I won't respond on it, although I will say I do think I think those are all parallel tracks that need to encumber and include each other. And, from an intervention standpoint, looking at the now and what do we have, what can we do now to try to do something to support? I think that's the venue through which, but I agree, there's this other system, the overall system umbrella over it that really is core to it. And I think there's a lot of different efforts under there, and I don't know that there's a collective solution except for lots of them, I guess. And maybe that, and I see Caleb on the screen. I don't know if you have other thoughts around what you might want to add from an agency perspective, but I think that's kind of the ongoing conversations that we continue to try to drive and look to solutioning as a broader system while we make key interventions to make progress in the meantime.
Yeah, thank you so much, Natasha and Councilmember Lee, and council members. Caleb Yant, Deputy Director. Director Bell had to step away for the end of this meeting, so I'm filling in here. I completely agree, and I think that the opportunity to engage in our next strategic plan sets up a place for us to lean into these conversations in a way that I think Councilmember Lee, your flagging is very important, and I agree. So I don't think I have anything to add on it other than that we have an opportunity to have an opinion on that as we lean into our next strategic plan.
Well, I'll also look forward to that conversation. So thank you for asking the question, Mary. All right. Is there anything else for the good of council today? Director Detweiler, do you have anything else to say?
No, I think that is it. Again, we'll continue to kind of bring forward the bodies of work that we're looking towards. I think, again, next month, looking at the lending side of that conversation, which was created through both the senior and disabled bill, as well as Senate Bill 684, to have us stand up our public financing tools to be able to do permanent finance lending, which I think is another great place where we're looking to be able to add those tools to be able to create opportunities for supporting the different projects and efforts around there. But I think for this month I am done, and wish you all a happy new year. We'll see you in the new year.
Yes, that closes out our final meeting of the year. So I will call this order closed, and I wish you all a great holiday season and look forward to seeing you all in January.